You say the gang rape of Sodom. Is that what the story of Sodom's about? Can you explain that a little bit?
You going to do dueling Bibles after what I just said?
I'm not going to argue with you. I was just giving you an opportunity to explain that a little further.
I don't think Sodom has anything to do with homosexuality whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
But then I say, okay, let's just say you're right, that it's every man and boy in this ancient Near Eastern city is gay.
Mm-hmm.
Just assume.
Mm-hmm.
Every man, okay, hard assumption to make.
Mm-hmm.
And one night they decide all together to come on this town, to this little house, and rape two angels. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty hard, too.
Mm-hmm.
But if that's true, this is about gang rape. So I condemn every gay man and every gay boy in Sodom and say, I'm not a sodomite. Of course, that's not anything to do with what that passage is about. 5 Old Testament prophets and Jesus all told us what the text was about. And even Jesus said nothing about sexuality. It was about what they did in those days. And what they did in those days was to dehumanize people who were strangers, aliens. They dehumanized them by all kinds of problems, including mass rape. And so here were heterosexuals, very likely, threatening to rape these strangers because they didn't know them. So it has nothing to do with us whatsoever.
I know a lot of gays and lesbians are deeply troubled by what they believe is in the Bible.
Oh, yeah.
And I would just recommend go back and read the story of Sodom. And it's...
And see how little it has to do with us.
Right.
And
right.
the Sodomites, the real Sodomites, are people who leave us as strangers, who treat us as aliens. Jerry Falwell is a Sodomite. Pat Robertson is a Sodomite. That's the Sodomites. And read the biblical stories. Jesus said to his disciples, if you go into a city where they treat you like that, dust your sandals off and move out. They're Sodomites.
Leave them behind
Leave them
completely,
behind, yeah.
and don't think about them anymore. How has the reception to your book been from bookstores and so on? Have you had any problems with that?
Well, in mainline bookstores, secular bookstores, it's a bestseller. But Christian booksellers won't have it. So 6,000 of America's Christian Booksellers Association stores refuse to have it. Even though it's about spirituality, it's about my commitment to God, it's about my love for the Creator, it's about homosexual people coming back to their own spiritual journeys. It's everything that it should be in a Christian bookstore, but they boycotted it. Whereas all these wonderful mainline stores, my wife, I have to tell you a story, my wife went into a bookstore in a mall in a hurry one day, and it turned out to be a Christian bookstore. And she shouts across the way, is there a real bookstore in this mall? I'm telling you, when a bookstore even, or a library censors like that, I don't think they can consider themselves real bookstores anymore.
You're talking about your wife. I understand she wrote the foreword to your book, so you still have a good relationship with her, which I'm very happy.
I've just come, yesterday from San Francisco, where she was installed as the chief of developments at Grace Cathedral in San Francisco. And so the children were there, the grandchild, and we were there to celebrate my wife's canon. She's become a canon in the Episcopal Church. We love each other. And after 24 years of trying to be reparative therapy, I took electric shock treatments, I took aversive therapy where they gave you little Allen pills. I did everything to overcome. Once she and I realized that sexuality, homo or hetero, is a gift from God, that you celebrate it, that you embrace it, she said, it's time for us to go. We've made a mistake. And that took some real grace and some courage.
I know when one of the things that helped me accept my homosexuality was the Lord's Prayer, thy will be done. And I had been saying that a lot, but saying, I want it done my way.
Yeah, right. Or the way society dictates, you know. They say it's evil to be gay. And I'm here to say, it isn't evil to be gay. And whatever you heard, it's a lie. It's misinformation. And I lived with that lie for 35 miserable years, but thank God I'm free of that lie now. Now I say, God created me this way, but once you accept your gift, sexual orientation, from God, then you have to live it with integrity. And you know, when you're in the closet cut off from God, you can say, hey, why, I can do whatever I want to do. But in fact, I think it's wonderful now to know that not only does God love it, but God is excited about using it wisely and well.
And give me a practical example of what you mean by that.
Well, for example, gay people like straight people have a tendency to think that sex is something we separate for a Friday night, or for after a lot of, gin fizzes, where we
mhm.
just kind of do what comes naturally. In
Mhm.
fact, I love sexuality. My partner and I, Gary Nixon, for the last 10 years, we celebrate our sexuality, and even though I'm getting old and tired, we still embrace sexuality and sex acts.
Mhm.
But to do something with someone that's irresponsible, to take advantage of somebody's drunkenness or
Mhm.
need,
Mhm.
to use a person is not God's dream for us. And I don't want to saying what is sexually right for anybody else.
Mhm.
That's a very personal journey.
Mhm.
But that there are things that are demeaning,
Mhm.
dehumanizing, destructive, and that we need to constantly be aware that God loves when we celebrate an act with responsibility, and is sad when we live beneath what we could become as gay or straight people.
Well,
That brings up a whole lot of crap, People think, oh boy, here he goes. You can't do this, you can't do that. I'm not saying you can't do. I'm saying what you can do. Be
I feel like
responsible.
even if we don't want to put rules
Yeah.
on everybody else's sexuality,
I don't.
there are consequences. And those consequences are going to go on whether I have said anything about them or you have or not.
That's right.
And right now with AIDS and, as the most dramatic example, behaving irresponsibly concerning sex has very, very serious consequences.
Can have that.
And we also have lifetimes without real love that can happen if it's just picking up a trick on the weekends and 20 minutes later you never see them again. I think the consequences of just missing out on the possibilities that we could have for our lives. I'm all for, I've had a long-term relationship just like you have, and
I did some tricking too.
Oh,
I mean, when I was coming out, that was all a part of who I was and trying to find out. And I look back on some of those irresponsible times as being really a part of my growth process. So for me to condemn anybody, I say, let's not condemn each other, but let's be alert.
Mm-hmm.
Let's be responsible. Let's talk about the issues.
Mm-hmm.
Where does this lead? What does this, but I don't want this caller or this person or to be connected with anything that says sex is evil or sex is bad or we're at war with our sexualities, because I really believe that it's a gift.
Oh, I really concur. I don't feel like it's condemning to say you've got to be careful or to think of other possibilities, because gay people don't have the fairy tales. They lived happily ever after, and so on, to teach us how to be in relationships when we fall in love.
That's right.
And how two men fall in love. I think in my own situation that we experience a little more than average power struggles of who's
In your relationship?
right,
Yeah.
who's going to say we'll do this or we won't do that. And I'm not talking about sex, I'm talking about going to a restaurant. It's just who's going to win out when there is a disagreement somehow. And I think two men, a man and a woman have these kinds of problems, but men are all taught to kind of dominate, and that makes it a little more difficult.
Have you read the Celestine Prophecy yet?
No.
Everybody's talking about it. It's #1 book in the nation. And it gets into that power struggles between lovers. It's really fun. Gary and I happen to be of such differences that we almost have never had conflict. It's really weird. It's not that we deny it, it's just that we don't care where we eat. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes that gets just as painful.
Mhm.
Well, I don't care if you don't care. Well, after you, Gaston's, after you, Alphonse, it's just
Mhm.
endless. So
Mhm.
you're right. I think our relationships are so boringly like heterosexual relationships that there's not even any difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really have often said, why do some straight people care so much in a negative way about
Yeah.
us? We're boring. This is
But
just,
we do decorate nicely. At least some of us.
see, I don't.
I don't either. See, that's a caricature. It's a caricature.
Hi.
In fact, I don't even like thinking about decorating.
No, I just said I'd turn that over to my lover. Well, he wanted to do it, and I said,
Yeah,
fine.
Gary
you
likes
know.
Architectural Digest. Yeah.
Well,
Makes me feel like I'll never live in a house like that.
well, I know I never will. Tell me, why are you here in Indianapolis?
I'm here as a guest of P-Flag, and I love P-Flag. Parents, families, friends of lesbians and gays, P-Flag. These folks are going to save us from this terrible rhetoric of the religious and radical right. There are organizations all over the country, families, friends, lesbians and gays, gathering together to create sanctuaries, to create environments where it's safe to be lesbian or gay, to try to teach their community about what it means to be lesbian and gay. And they're having a program tonight talking about that, and I'm here to participate in that program.
What do you recommend for the people that are listening to this show, gays and lesbians and their friends, who would like to work against some of the stuff that the religious right is doing?
Well, it's very important, first of all, that we know what they're doing. And I think one of the problems is most gay and lesbians are wise enough to turn it off or to dump it when it comes in the mail, and they've never gotten the impact of how bad the environment is right now. It is unbelievably anti-gay out there. And once you know that, then you have to decide, secondly, how serious is it for the long haul? Mel comes into town like Chicken Little saying the sky is falling. Others say, this is the best of times, this is the last groan of the radical right. They've lost, right? And somewhere in between is the truth. And I say, if I were a Jew and it was 1929 and I lived in Berlin, I would be looking very carefully at the signs and saying, how serious is this? I think it's very serious. They're organized, they're political, they're crusading to see us disposed of. I tell you, I've just done 107 radio talk shows across the country. Every show had someone who called in to tell me you should be killed. Okay? One or two people, but hundreds of people, all thinking there's Leviticus 20 says I should be killed. And when I say, who should do the killing? They say, the civil authorities. That's why we're going to get good men of God elected. So, you know, when they're talking about already the killing has begun. We're burying them in Dallas in terms of young people who are taken out and brutally murdered simply because they're gay. So it's serious. And I think once you know it's serious and you've decided how serious it is, then you have to decide for yourself where you're going to participate in the healing of the wounded nation. You know? Working in a PFLAG, great way to do it. Working with the Human Rights Campaign Fund or the Federal Club, working with the National Gay and Lesbian Task Force, working with the Victory Fund, working with Lambda Legal, working with GLAAD, the Gay Lesbian Anti-Defamation Association, working somewhere. But the least we can do is register to vote. You know, register to vote, see what the candidates are saying, support the candidates that are pro-gay, stand against the candidates that are using anti-gay rhetoric like Ollie North to raise money. Do what we can, little or big, but do something before we have to look back and say, I participated in my own demise.
Well, chilling thoughts. You're spurring me on to action. I hope we're spurring other people on to action also. Mel White, I appreciate your being here with us very much. Delight to meet you. And I hope that many of our viewers will enjoy reading your book, The Stranger at the Gate. Did I say that correctly?
The Stranger at the Gate. To be gay and Christian in America.
To be gay and Christian in America. All right. I knew there was another part. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Great to meet you.